I just checked my temperature and I'm still kind of hovering right around 97 degrees. All right, we're going to talk about the coronavirus. There's really nothing else to talk about right now, but I wanted to mention kind of two things about it that I just found very interesting and just some theories that I have about what's going on. Have you noticed a lot of conflicting information? I mean, that's definitely happening. I've seen all kinds of people notice this thing. In fact, there's a one of my favorites, Bradley Mason. He tweeted this out yesterday or 2 days ago. He said, "Nearly, if not all, COVID reporting is partisan trash. We are not being served as a people by this BS. It's so frustrating." I responded to him and I said, "Also, because of this, nobody knows what to believe. Also, let's never agree on anything again," because me and Bradley agree on very little when it comes to controversial things. And Bradley responded with a fair haha. You see, coronavirus is bringing us all together. It really is. And I got to say, Bradley, stay safe out there. Stay healthy, my friend. I don't know if you'd consider me a friend, but I like you. And I think didn't I make a video about how I liked you? Whatever, who cares? Anyway, but yeah, this is a problem. This is a problem. This is the big problem with fake news. When you read fake news so often, you're at the point now you don't even know what to believe. And you've got some doctors that are saying that this is the tragedy of epic proportions. It's a tsunami. The hospitals are going to be overwhelmed. Everything's going crazy. And then you've got some doctors that are saying, look, guys, let's remember, this is a mild disease in most cases. This is not as contagious as the flu. The virus is not as quote-unquote smart. There's an article I read from one of the doctors or the directors of health and infectious disease in Israel, talking about what we need is our leaders telling us, look, as bad as it is, it's really not the end of the world. And I'm wondering, why is that? Why do we get experts on both sides of this? And even, your Facebook friends are going to have a lot of doomsayers, and then you're going to have people, that are naysayers, and then you're going to have people in between that just want everyone to kind of weigh out these risks. The reality is that as it stands right now, if you look at influenza numbers, the reality is that there's a lot of flu out there, and it's a very dangerous disease as well, and nobody grinds economies to a halt for flu. Now, this is not the flu. This is different, and they might say it's worse. Okay, fine. But we have to measure these responses out, because the damage that's being done economically is, I don't know if it's reversible, to be honest. I mean, it certainly is reversible to a certain degree, but this is a big problem for many, many people. Let me ask you guys a question. When was the last time you saw a map like this in your life? Have you ever seen a map like this? Because, they produce maps like this about the flu, and they look pretty scary too. And when was the last time you saw a graph like this, where the curve is a hockey stick and stuff like that? Because they produce graphs like this all the time for flu, because there's a pandemic every year for influenza. And again, I'm not saying this is just the flu. I'm not saying it's not as bad as the flu or worse than the flu. I'm not saying anything, but I'm just saying that if you are finding yourselves full of anxiety with a map like this, just keep in mind that there are maps like this every year, and there's flu around us every year. And we need to keep things a little bit into perspective, because here's what I think is going on with these conflicting reports that you're seeing. People are looking at the same data, and they're coming to two different conclusions as far as action items. And I personally think that what's going on here is we're seeing the very classic, debate between the two kinds of people in the world. The glass half empty, the glass half full. Let me give you a perfect example. I saw someone that I like very much comment about how many celebrities he has seen, and people that are popular, Justin Trudeau's wife and things like that, people that are well known, how many people are testing positive for COVID-19. So that must mean this is everywhere. When was the last time you saw so many celebrities coming out with the disease? And I thought to myself, so that was a doomsayer, obviously. And I thought to myself, well, you know what? Celebrities get the flu, and so do athletes, and so do politicians and stuff like that. But they don't announce it on Twitter. They don't announce it on TV when they get the flu, because we're used to it. I mean, there's nothing sensational about getting the flu. You get the flu, everybody gets the flu. And so And so I'm not an expert, and the doomsayers on Facebook aren't experts either. We're looking at the same exact fact set, and somehow we're reaching two different conclusions. To me, that doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But to this doomsayer, it seems like a humongous deal. Who's right? Well, I don't know, but I tend to be an optimistic person, so I don't think it's that confusing why I come to an optimistic conclusion when I see, well, there's a lot of celebrities announcing they've got COVID. To me, it's like, well, yeah, but why would a celebrity announce and make a big deal about having the flu? Because we're so used to it. We're just so used to the flu. So my theory is that maybe that's just the difference in personality types. That's why you see some doctors, sounding the alarm and being crazy, and then other doctors, they're not really thinking it's that big a deal. And then you see a lot of doctors in between, because there's a lot of people in between. That's the one thing I wanted to just mention. And so I'm not making any definitive, statements here about COVID and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to get COVID. I really don't. But let's just keep our heads and try to be as rational as possible, because the same exact data, it doesn't mean that I'm ignoring data just because I don't have the negative outlook that some people have. And likewise, it doesn't mean that the people that do have a negative outlook are ignoring data as well. It's just that they're reading it differently. And so anyway, take precautions, man. Stay inside. I think that's probably a good idea at this point. That being said, I don't think it's a good idea to grind the economy to a halt. And that's what I want to talk about next, the economy. Let's just get one thing perfectly clear here. The economy has not been tanked by the coronavirus. It just hasn't. See, the economy was fragile already. The economy was fragile already. If anything happened that caused a hiccup in revenues for companies, they don't have the cash on hand. They don't have the ability to survive very long without the revenues that they're used to. This is just revelatory of our economic problems. This is not the cause of our economic problems. Does that make sense? It's like I'm trying to think of like a good analogy to this. It's like if you find out that you have diabetes, and the way that you find out is, I don't know, let's say that, you like your vision starts getting blurry for a second, and you go to the doctor and they figure out, well, you've got diabetes, man, you've got diabetes. And then you think, oh man, my vision, how could my eyes give me diabetes? And that's like your thought, like, man, my vision problem is giving me diabetes. If that's what you think, that's foolish. It wasn't that. It was the diabetes that caused the vision problem. So it's just the vision problem exposed the diabetes, and you have a real issue here. And the issue is tons of debt, not a lot of savings, and that kind of thing in the economy. And so we got to understand that coronavirus, it could have been anything. If it wasn't coronavirus, it was going to be something else. It would have been student loan debt. It would have been housing market crash. It would have been something else that would expose this economy for what it is. And so let's not blame the coronavirus, because the reality is, if you blame the coronavirus for our economic problems, you're going to end up with the wrong solution. It's like right now what we're doing, pumping money into the economy with the Fed, thinking about bailout programs, free money for everybody, that kind of stuff. That's not going to cause the problem. That's like a diabetic trying to solve his diabetes by eating more sugar. It doesn't work that way. You've got to get at the root cause of the issue. You can't give a cocaine addict more coke and expect him to get out of his addiction. It doesn't work that way. And likewise, you can't fix an economy racked with debt by having more debt. It just doesn't work that way. It makes it worse. You might be able to kick the can down the road a few days, a few months, a few years, a few decades, but in the end, the pain's going to be worse. What you got to do is just let it happen now, survive through it, and it'll be fixed quicker. There's actually an analogy to this with the coronavirus. The news is coming out that if you take fever reducers, that you actually might make things worse. Because a couple of reasons, but one thing is a fever is actually good for fighting viruses. So yes, if you take a fever reducer when you have the coronavirus fever, you might feel more comfortable in the short term, but in the long term, you might be actually making things worse. Let's think long term. Let's suffer through the fever for a little bit, sweat it out, let the virus, let your immune system fight that virus with the way it's supposed to. And in the short term, it'll be painful, but in the long term, it'll be better. I don't think that we're capable of doing this in the United States. I just don't think I think we're past the point of no return there. But anyway, there's a few random thoughts. I hope you don't find this too preachy. Guys, stay safe out there. Make smart decisions. If you haven't planned, if you haven't prepped, if you haven't stocked up your pantry and things like that, today's a good day to do that. You know what I mean? You still have time. It might be a good idea, depending on where you live, to wear your mask. If you don't have a mask, find a mask. You can get them on eBay. You can get them wherever you want to get them. So I don't know. Guys, no despair, baby. No despair. Let's start making plans now. Let's start trusting in the Lord now. Let's start praying and fasting for God to have mercy on your family, your church, this nation, God. Man, I don't know. Anyway, I hope this video was helpful. God bless.